We're live. Well, hi Sharon, thank you so much for coming today.
Thanks for having me.
It's quite a quick turnaround, actually.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's good.
From discovery call to today,
Yeah.
which is fantastic. I guess the most important thing to start off with, if that's okay with yourself, is just introduce yourself, the roles that you've had, if you want to, a couple of key passions of areas and what you're doing to date, and then we'll just jump into it, shall we?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so thanks for having me, Nathan. So I'm Sharon White, and I am currently the director at Educating Horizons. But prior to that, my background is teaching. I was a teacher for 20 years, and, I was head of a pupil referral unit. I loved that job, working with those kids. And then I worked in special schools as well with children with social, emotional and mental health challenges. So I've worked with those children and those families, and I love that. So teaching was my passion. That's what I've always wanted to do, and that's what I did. And then I sort of moved to the dark side, as I call it, and worked for local government, which I did love. I absolutely loved it. And it culminated in me being head of inclusion in Barking and Dagenham in East London. So I did that job, loved that job. And then I did another sidestep into City Hall, worked in the London Mayor's Violence Reduction Unit, just under a year. Really good, it was really good networking and lovely team. They do a great job. But I think for me, the passion is working on behalf of underserved children, underserved communities, families, linking in partners across the footprint in a local area. That's my passion. So it's about, supporting vulnerable children, and that's what I stand for. So Educating Horizons is about changing systems to change lives, and that's what we hope to achieve.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to this.
Brilliant.
Great stuff. Let's get into it.
Yeah, go on. Okay.
Well, again, Sharon, thank you so much for coming. I think you're going to have a great perspective to share with people. From down south to share up north, share with everybody. But for me, what I love to ask people, first of all, the first question, it's kind of a running theme, if you like, is how did you get into education? Is it something you've always wanted to do? And what path did you take to start? And then, I guess, start your career journey. Yeah. Is that all right?
Yeah. So I was that annoying kid that used to stack all my dolls in a line and pretend to be a teacher and get books out and say, right, now we're having class now. So I used to get all the dolls in a little, sit them down. And since I was about 5, my mum said I always wanted to be a teacher. Teaching. That's all I ever wanted to do. And it's quite funny because nobody in the family's done teaching. My mum was a nurse and my dad was a manager, so nobody had been in education prior to myself. So it's just, I had a fascination of teaching. So that's interesting, isn't it? And I think the power of a good teacher, even I was very, very blessed that I went to really good schools and I had some absolutely fantastic teachers. So in terms of aspiration, I used to think, yeah, I want to be like them. Because I used to look at them and think, wow, as the same way as people look at rock stars, just teachers. Anyway, so it did emanate really from that, really, when I was a young girl. So it's that pathway. I didn't just go into it straight away, though. So as life, falls, you don't just do things in a linear fashion. So I did lots of different jobs. And then it was a good friend of mine at the time. She was my bridesmaid, Julia Hall. I'm going to credit her, who said, why don't you just go into teaching? And at the time, there was a bit of a call out for recruitment. This was about 1996. And there was a shortage of teachers. I know there's a shortage now, So I thought, yeah, can't go on then. I've done a lot of other things. Let's do it. And it just was born from there, really. I did the PGCE, because I had my degree. And I went into design technology. So that's not what I would have thought I was going to go into, because I was quite arty, really.
Okay.
But art and design, there wasn't a shortage of art and design teachers. So I was being very strategic, even at that level, you see. So I thought, okay, so design technology, there's a shortage. I think they were actually giving a bursary or grants at the time. I can't remember now. So I thought, yeah, let's do that, DT. It was absolutely hilarious because we had people on the course. This was at Goldsmiths who were, you could tell they'd crafted tables like this.
Yeah.
And then up there I was, not into, design at all. It was more drawing and technical, not technical, just sketching. So I was a bit of an outlier even from that, but I was a good, they could see I was good in terms of the teaching bit. And that's how I passed it, really, because when it came to the final product, I was doing things with smashed avocado and people were making, frames and things. So, so I got into it via DT. And that was my entry point, really.
Okay. And did you stick to DT? Where did it go after that then?
Yeah, so I applied. So once I qualified, I applied for jobs in special schools, EBD schools at the time. Remember, it was called EBD, so it was special, but as DT. And then I had my children, so then I started working part-time as opposed to full-time. But the thing with design technology, it's a practical subject. It involves, critical thinking. It's creative, and that's what I'm about, really. So that's why I was pleased to be doing a subject like that as opposed to, teaching English or maths.
Okay.
So when they came into the classroom, there was always an expectation of what are we going to make today? What are we going to design, which was good.
Yeah.
So that's what I did like about it. And particularly for those children, when I first started working with children, as I said, it was EBD then, but it's obviously SEMH now. Those children that they didn't have access to, all the different equipment, and they would make things very, very creative, and it was just good to see them flourish. And that was really something for me that, DT, it was good that it could allow people to do that,
Okay. And I've noticed that you very quickly moved to SEN.
Yeah.
How did that, so you're in mainstream.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get qualified, you go into mainstream. How did that decision come? What made you move towards that rather than go to another school that was mainstream?
Yeah.
How did that decision happen?
Yeah, that's a good question, Nathan. I never really sat and thought why, but I did work in numerous, mainstream schools across London. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, I did work in a private school in Waldingham. Lovely school. I mean, the girls were teaching me towards the end, so I just thought, I think it was about the cohort that I thought I would like to do more, working with, vulnerable children. That's what I had that passion, I think, from the get-go, because, like I said, I did work previously in different settings, mainstream. So I was honing it down, I think, really. Maybe for me, I'm just recalling, because I've got a very bad memory. I remember I'm going through the menopause, Nathan, please. Maybe for me, I would say that I wanted to go down the pathway of Senko, potentially. So that's most probably why I was looking at that area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you step into the world of SEM, and what was your first experience? What was your first class like, and what was the school like? What were the children like?
Yeah, so it was a school in Bexley, just opening. So again, it was an open space, a new school, new classroom. So I was able to design what it looked like, and again, that was something that really lends itself to me, because I like to design the environment, because environment is very important. The classroom space, and particularly we talk about engineering creativity for children when they come into the lesson, but the environment lends itself to that as well. It's really important that when they come in, the classroom space is designed the right way for them, and it's adaptive. So it was very good. But then I had my first child, so then, and I was a coordinator as well in that space. So I really did enjoy working with those children, and that's when I could see, the holistic approach working with families, because so I was already thrown in the deep end, I would say, from an early stage of my career, because when you're working in a special school, you're working not just with the children, you're working with the families. These children had, it wasn't educational healthcare plan then, but they had the statement.
Yeah.
So that's what I thought, this is something I like to do, that holistic approach. That's what I really got into.
So I guess it was so different. I mean, you do work with families in mainstream, but when you were there in SEN, they're there more regularly. Yeah. You're helping them. I guess do you help them a lot, like carry on what you're doing at school at home.
Yeah,
as
that's
well.
exactly what it is, isn't it? It's about the strategies that we're employing in the classroom to try and help, the parents, because parents sometimes at the end of their tether, but also, I always say the parents are the first teachers for our children, really. So, they've got the expertise as well, so they can talk to us about what they think is helpful in the classroom. So that's what I learnt, early on in my career, which was really, really good, working with the parents.
So now you've got children and you're in an SEN school and you move into SLT.
Yeah. So we're going to have to skip because I moved a lot. So I was working, different schools. So
have we jumped?
Yeah, we're jumping around.
Let's bring it back. Yeah.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, okay.
So had the first child and then, did some agency work, working again in mainstream schools. Then what did I do? Then I think I saw a job advert in calling for a coordinator for children in a pupil referral unit. So remember now I've been doing some SEMH work and then, working in special school and then going back into mainstream again because I was doing agency at the time. So, again, the pull to work with children, vulnerable children. But this time it's children that had been excluded from school. And it was called the Fresh Start Group, Nathan. So these were children that were directed off-site, but they had the ability to reintegrate back into mainstream school. So I thought that sounds appealing. They were looking for a Key Stage 3 coordinator, but it was in Swindon. So this is the first time now that I start moving about, really. So I said to my husband, should we go? And he said, yeah, because our kids at the time, we had 3 by that stage. He said, they're young. But prior to that, we were seeing a lot of violence in London. We were seeing, because we were living in Annerley at the time, we were seeing, one time I got on the bus and this guy was threatening the bus driver with a knife. We were seeing blood trails, just pushing the pram with my kids just to the shop, and I'd see blood splatters, going towards the doctor's surgery, and I thought, no, I don't really want to be here anymore, to be quite honest with you. The kids are young. So I thought in terms of safety, we need to leave. Yeah. My husband at the time was a youth worker as well, so he'd do a lot of work in terms of, intervention, working with the different gangs. Yeah. I don't really like that word, but yeah. So that was the conscious decision to try and move out. So I'd never heard of Swindon, but I thought, let's go for it. Got the job. And, I absolutely loved it.
Why is Swindon so different? Because is Swindon close to London still?
At the time, people would say that Swindon was almost 5 years behind what was going on in London, which I thought was a bit challenging statement. But for me, it just represented a safe haven in so many different ways, particularly for the family, but also this opportunity to go back into working with, children who had been excluded, obviously had additional needs, but, they had an opportunity to reintegrate back. That's what the hook was for me. Yep. And it was quite an established organisation, Stratton Education Centre. It was lovely, lovely team, one of the best teams that I've ever worked with, because everyone had that common touch, unconditional positive regard for every child. So it didn't matter what you did that day. We forget it. The next day, hello, how are you? They look at you, they rip the displays would be back up the next day. So, we just unconditional positive regard, and that was drilled into us from an early stage by a wonderful executive head teacher at the time, who's sadly passed, but he just was quite inspiring, and he's the one who set it up and interviewed me. So, so I did the work there as a coordinator, and SEAL then came in. Do you remember the national strategies, social emotional aspects of learning? Okay. I absolutely loved it. So anyone can check that out if they're listening to this. Please look at. I don't know why they're not re-establishing that. Okay. So it was teaching children about the 5 domains, and I always catch myself out now because I can't even remember them. But it was social skills, motivation, empathy, something else and something else. But it was absolutely fantastic. Seriously, it was really good because all the curriculum, was all there really for staff to really teach the children about, empathy, motivation. These are the things that they need to succeed, particularly if they're going back to mainstream. And it just sort of permeated across the whole of the unit. And so I was the SEAL coordinator, really, really passionate about that. I actually even tried to do an app at the time.
No way.
Yeah, I was talking to different investors at the time saying, look, can we... So you could see the entrepreneurial spirit coming in already there. Yeah. So, and I did write some books, which I've got on my website, which you can plug after.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk about it. What books have you got?
D-Side, they're called. So it's based on SEAL. So it's about choices and the characters making the right choices. That's what it is. So it involved a community of young people in different backgrounds, and so I wrote that quite avidly at the time. And at that time as well, I was being promoted in the school, and I became head of the PRU as well, which I loved that job as well. A lot of, as you know, when you're doing a lot of HR functions, it's a lot to do with the adults rather than the kids towards the end, which was a bit sad, really.
Took you away from the core of what you loved about it, which was the Okay. The big thing for me, I really want to unpack slightly. Mm-hmm. And I know people can go away and I think it would be great if people are interested in the SEAL initiative and whatever. It really feels like the team lent into it and it worked. What about it worked? And would you say to people, look, as you've just said, it's teaching in a different way by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind me just, I guess, asking a question, so I may ask, what was its focus compared to, let's say, a national curriculum?
Yeah, so it was, what it was saying was, it's for me, I've always said this, Maslow before Bloom. So it's focusing on the fundamentals. So if a child's basic needs aren't being met, they're not going to be able to learn. And so we've got lots of different strategies, which I'm sure we'll talk through later on, like trauma-informed, trauma-responsive, contextual safeguarding. We've got Thrive approach, which is big in some schools. I don't know if it's big where you work here, Nathan. And also we've got Nurture UK I work with as well, the Boxall profile. But at the time, the SEAL came about and it was just talking about strategy, because the national strategy I thought was fantastic, really. And all the curriculum offer there, I mean, it's archived, but people can still use it because you need to have something in your practice to understand, the basics. So in order for our children to succeed, we've got to work on their social skills. Because that's why they were excluded from school, for their behaviour. Yeah. So it's giving strategies for behaviour. All behaviour is a form of communication, as we know. But I think sometimes we need to reframe and remember that, because for teachers, for some of us, the behaviours we see in classroom can be very emotive, and then children are suspended, and it just escalates. So I think it's really important that there's a strategy built into any school, and it just seemed to take off. Everyone really thought, yeah, this is it, and we were measuring against it. Particularly motivation, that's what we found with those children. Because they had been excluded, they felt rejected, they felt a lack of belonging, which obviously is a big talking point at the moment, isn't it, belonging? They just felt worthless. And unfortunately, the building itself, we talked about the environment before, was quite a dilapidated building. So it wasn't a brand spanking new building, like some of these schools, academies. So again, that just builds into the sense of, well, I'm worthless now. I've been designated this place. So it's always about getting them to build their skills, and let's try and get them back, if we can, back into mainstream, where the quality education, I'm not saying quality education is not in pupil referral units, but the breadth and depth of the curriculum is in, obviously, a mainstream school. So we need to get them back so they can get those positive outcomes. Yeah. And I think that's it. Really, people did buy into it. But I was the coordinator, so, I was drumming it into everyone left, right and centre.
And you mentioned this reset. I've heard it a few times before in the past from different people. And how important is that? And, you know, would you say that's a big key to the success of that PRU? Of, you know, because you're going to get a child throughout the day that's unregulated. And as much as you want that child to settle, no doubt, if something's happened which is affecting that child, it's going to be the day, isn't it?
Yeah.
So every member of staff that comes into contact with this child may experience some sort of conflict.
Yeah.
Let's just say conflict. So how do you think that could benefit other schools if they kind of, and I'm no doubt a lot of schools do implement it and all staff think this way, but in a PRU it's on a lot more micro scale, so you can see when you've got smaller groups the effect it has.
That's right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's got to be a whole school approach, Nathan. Okay. Whatever the approach is, there's not one size fits all. So I've mentioned a couple. So whether it's Thrive, whether it's Nurture, Boxall, it can't just be, oh, go and do that with the Senko, or, you know, come out of the main lesson and go and do your intervention there. It should, for me, be whole school. Yeah. Everyone needs to buy into it. Why? Because everyone will benefit. You'll have better behaviour. Yeah. You know, the children will be able to regulate, as you say. It just makes sense. It's a no-brainer for me, really, that we've got to have a strategy, a whole school approach, and it's got to be from the top. You know, the leaders, the head teachers have got to show that they buy into it. It's not something they say, oh, can SLT, can you know, cascade that down to middle leaders for them to run. Yeah. And so that's, for me, what I've seen. When I've seen it work, not just in that setting that I was in Swindon, any setting, because through my local authority role, I've seen excellent practice in different schools. It's a whole school approach, and everyone talks the same language, including the head teacher. And that's where you think, wow, this is powerful. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. And then before we, I guess, move on, if that's all right with yourself, or what, you know, we can stay on this topic if you want. It's not an issue, but I just wanted to, for those people out there that have got an idea of what a PRU is, but because a PRU, in misinformed eyes, is where a naughty child goes. And I know a lot of people know, and how you spoke as well yourself when we had the discovery conversation, are so passionate about changing people's view on these children. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I guess for people, for everybody out there, with your breadth and depth of experience and knowledge, you know, what is the purpose of a PRU and what type of children go there? And I guess if I could layer it with one more thing, what do they need?
I think I'm in two minds about it. PRUs, they're denigrated quite a lot, and I think they shouldn't be, because the work they do is absolutely fantastic. There's a statutory function. We've got to remember that with pupil referral units. So if a child has been permanently excluded, that's where they will go. It's the local authority's responsibility, you know, after day 6. I'm going all technical here, but it's got a statutory function first and foremost. What I'm saying is, I think the most successful ones are ones that, you know, children can reintegrate. It's not, you know, the behaviour, we can look at it and let's give them another opportunity if we can. But for some children, it is the permanent destination for them, and the outcomes are fantastic. I mean, the outcomes in the PRU that I was in, fantastic, because the team were brilliant. Everyone bought into it. The parents were happy as well. And, you know, and these children didn't have, some of them did, but not all of them had an educational healthcare plan. So we were proud of what we achieved together. So I think there is a time and a place for pupil referral units, but I do get worried, this is the bit that I'm going to say to you, when I see primary PRUs, I think to myself, do we actually need primary PRUs? Because when we're talking young children, and I know the stats are rising for primary suspensions and primary permanent exclusions are going through the roof. We're talking about children as young as year 4, year 3 are permanently excluded. So then I don't personally advocate that at all. Okay. I don't think we should be having primary PRUs. I think we need to be working in a holistic way. And I think, I'm not an advocate of primary PRUs whatsoever, really. So I'm really coming hard on that one.
Yeah. Okay. This is just me playing devil's advocate. So I'm presuming your thoughts are, well, there's things like SEAL out there to support the primary schools by introducing things that have been proven to work in the past. The children, stay within mainstream, but are taught in a slightly different way or adapted to slightly, or again, maybe not just for that. If you've got 2 children, it would benefit, but you did it for the full class. The full class benefits.
Yeah,
not just the 2 children.
That's exactly it, 100%. And I just think this is where alternative provision, the wider sense, so obviously PRU is part of the alternative provision, and the government's putting a spotlight on SEND and AP, which is great. Alternative provision is quality alternative provision is the key. So that was my local authority hat that I was really, because I'd seen the kids come to me into the PRU, and for them it was a bit too late in terms of intervention. I thought, well, this is about now quality alternative provision in mainstream school, and also if the child does have to come out of the building, because we've got to be honest, the behaviour might have escalated to the point that a head teacher has to make that decision, and they don't make that decision lightly at all. So I just think for me, that's what we need to be thinking, quality alternative provision. What does that look like? Well, this is the work that I do now currently. I work on behalf of Box Up Crime in Barking, and they do fantastic work, mentoring work, and we're going to be looking at quality teaching as well. But the role of the youth practitioner, that's what I noticed was key. It's the golden thread for me in terms of alternative provision. And I noticed that when I was, head of the Stratton Education Centre, head of the PRU, I employed youth practitioners. And at the time, it sounds like, oh, yeah, of course you would. But we're going back some time now. Yeah. And they weren't just part-time. They were fully embedded in the staff team. They would do a fantastic job.
I'll have to ask, what's a youth practitioner?
Yes, just a youth worker, but they would work holistically, not just with the child. They work with the family. And then they would, the work that they did would refer into, it wasn't called early help at the time, but, the equivalent of early help now, or social care. Absolutely fantastic. So they would go above and beyond, so we're talking Saturdays, take the children out, working with the families, because there's certain key themes. These families need support as well. And I tell you something, the outcomes, Nathan, for those children, fantastic. Really was impactful. Mm-hmm.
I guess in some respects, and this is, I was thinking it as you're talking, but as you're talking, I want to ask another one as well. The question I was going to ask, and I will link it to what you've just said as well, is I'm presuming just like an SEN school, you're involved a lot with the parents or that person's carer or designated adult. And no doubt it's important that they're on board, but also no doubt heard. Yeah. Because you don't know what happens outside of, and each thing affects the other thing. And if, I guess, both parties aren't communicating, it doesn't benefit the child, no doubt.
Yeah. I think the difference with an SEMH school compared to a PRU is they've been permanently excluded, or they've been told you're going there because of their behaviour, which is obviously a negative thing, really. So I think there's stigma attached with, for the parents, for them. They feel, I think some of them felt quite embarrassed. Others, Nathan, were saying, oh, this is the school of choice, because they've been there. So intergenerational, they were proud that their kids were there. And, they even say is their waiting list, which I thought, oh, wow. But it's because they knew that, the outcomes were very good, and it was a safe place for them. They did actually okay, and their children, they felt mainstream's not for our children, and how can we get... I said, no, you can't, it's not a waiting, it's not it's not eating.
But that's good, no?
It's good.
Yeah,
it's good. Yeah, but so I think there's a bit of a dichotomy. You can see some parents are really. You can see they don't understand what's happened. Their child 1 minute is in mainstream school, next minute they find themselves sitting with you and saying, I don't understand it, what's going on here, and it's exasperating. And you can all you have to do is just work with them and say, look, we're going to look after your child. We're going to do the best for your child. Mm-hmm. We work together. And, again, that was forefront in the working practices, not just for me, but I was drilling it into the team, working with the parents. And then obviously through that, it's working with the teams, the partnership. And that's how it sort of formulated for me, Nathan, at the beginning. So because partnership working is key to everything I do now. So, you know, you'd link in with social care, you'd link in with all the different services in the council, but also you'd link in with the other schools because you're trying to reintegrate them back. And that was quite a good sales thing you had to do. You had to sell those children back to. So I'd go to a panel, fair access panel, and they'd say, "Oh, is Johnny was with us?" And da da da. Oh, he's ready. Johnny's ready to come back. Oh, you really must give him a chance now. His attendance has shot up. His engagement, you know, he's made so much progress in English, maths, etc. Give him another shot. And then it's about the work we've been doing in terms of regulation. You know. And hopefully, you just fingers crossed. You always think, right, come on, give them a chance. And they did succeed on the most part. Some didn't, but you know.
But you're going to get varied results, aren't you?
Yeah.
And with the youth worker, youth support officer, so they were alongside the other staff from the school. So have you also got TAs as well?
Yeah, that's right.
So you've got TAs, teachers, and these youth support.
Yeah, they were absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
And what I wanted to ask you is, so with this, they did weekend stuff, after school stuff, because I'm presuming that helps stimulate the children because, you know, they're not at home. I guess, you know, you can imagine if you're frustrated, you know, understimulated, no doubt it would lead to behaviours that could challenge and stuff like that. So, and also no doubt seeing a friendly face over the weekend.
You know? I mean, it was it's the parents because what we have to, and the practitioner, I say practitioner, and that's the word, it's a youth worker, but...
Youth practitioner,
So they would be part of our training, you know, CPD. So if we were talking about SEAL, or if we were talking about whatever it was at the time in terms of behaviour strategies, we would invite them to that as well, so that they could implement it with the family. And, you know, and it's the same thing, giving those strategies to the families, because, you know, behaviour doesn't just stop as soon as you walk out the gates of the school. It's going to obviously interrelate with what you're doing at home and vice versa. So that's what would happen. But what I found with, we commissioned something in Barking and Dagenham to prevent the permanent exclusions of children bringing a knife into school, and it was called Sparking Purpose. And I'm going to give a shout out to Glenda Spencer because she's absolutely fantastic. She was the family practitioner working with the families. So the programme was commissioned to prevent permanent exclusions for children in mainstream school, and we thought, let's give them a chance once we regulate their behaviour, working with youth practitioners, working with another school with the English and maths so they're not missing out. And North Star did that, Ewan McDonald, absolutely fantastic. So what we found was the special element of that, and we were actually showcased in the RSA toolkit for inclusion as well through this programme, was the working with the families. So that's what I'm saying, that's what made the difference. And then we saw commonality in terms of worklessness, literacy difficulties for the families. And Glenda, again, same as the youth practitioners in the PRU, she would go there Sunday, Saturday, talking to the families. I mean, she'd go above and beyond. I mean, she's MBE now, Glenda Spencer, MBE, well deserved. She would just go above and beyond. And the difference that she made, because she'd go into the home. She'd go into the home, she'd see the child in the home, but also it was helping the parents. And some of the parents wouldn't even leave the house, you know. Some of the parents had mental health needs. And she would then signpost to the different key workers. That benefits the child. The child then feels somebody's helping my mum, you know, to be able to, you know, come out of the house. I don't need to, because, you know, that child's attendance was quite poor because, of course, they weren't worried about their mum. So that's what I'm trying to say. It was you have to drop in external agencies that have got that magic touch. Because I'm not saying teachers haven't got it, but they've got a duty, obviously, and they've got a job to teach. They're being asked to do a lot at this moment in time. The pressure is immense. So you've got to bring experts into your space who can do that job and just join it up with what you're doing in the school.
And that will also obviously benefit the school
Yeah.
and the child and the community. And we just, it ripples out in a positive way.
That's it.
This youth practitioner, is this something you implemented when you were head teacher?
Yeah.
Where did the idea come from?
Again, I've always had something about partnership. So I think there was something going on at the time. They were recruiting youth workers, and then there was a trial or something. I said, I'll have some of them. And that's how it started. And I think, again, I'm a bit of an outlier in education because for me, it's about bringing in other services into the space of the classroom. That's what I think works really, really well. So, I think it was just by chance something happened and I said, we'll have some of them in our setting. And then it just took off from there, really. It was amazing.
Wow. And the results spoke for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're still linked with the school now. It's changed its name, but they're still there doing the work,
Amazing.
Yeah.
Then the other question I wanted to ask yourself is, when you've got a family, you're working in a busy environment, how did you make the decision to become head, SLT? No doubt they were nudging you towards it, but how did you know you were ready for such a big responsibility? And what was it like when you first stepped into that?
It was quite daunting in the school. Let's talk about that one, head of the PRU, because one minute you're just on level playing field with certain members of staff. Next minute, I found myself in that situation because of what happened within the staff. So senior leaders were ill, so I had to step up, really. So I was always showing, promising behaviour in that sense. So it just was my time to step up. But it was quite interesting because there's a difference between being a manager, because obviously I was managing maybe an area of work like, coordination, and then leading. So there's a difference. So I was put on the, what was it called? MPQSL. So I did that. And ironically, I was the head of the centre then, so I should have done the NPQH, really. They actually did say to me at the time, why are you doing this one? I said, it doesn't matter, let's just do it. But a lot of the content was really good because it was about leadership, because there is a difference between managing and leading. So this was now about vision. And because people had known me at a certain level, I was their friend, I had to sort of step up and then almost... It was a bit different, you change your character in a way because you're now the leader, so you can't be going out pally with them all the time, going out for a drink and stuff. So I'm sure some people will do that. But you have to, because you've got to make some tough decisions and, later on down the line. And as I said to you before, it was always more about the adults and the staff as opposed to, what's going on for the children, because that's the role of the senior leadership and middle leaders. I was dealing mainly with, the budget and staffing issues, and then external agencies as well, what's going on there, and making sure that we were getting children back into mainstream. So again, it was liaising with, with the local authority and liaising with the other schools. So I was doing more of that strategic stuff. So in the end, there was a difference, and it wasn't natural. But I did like the strategic element of leadership and, having a strategy and people buying into your vision. That's what I like. You
feed off it.
Yeah.
The gratification of the other staff.
Yeah.
What I always think is crazy about teachers, how you all work so hard all the time, all year round. And then in order to progress to the next stage, you've got to do basically a degree.
Yeah.
You've got a degree. Yeah. You specialise in subjects or topics or whatever else. You're working hard, round the clock, weekends, late, this, that, and the other, overtime, whatever. And then you do an MPQSL.
Yeah.
And then after that, you do an MPQSH.
Yeah.
It's so would a good piece of advice be an MPQSL? What is it? And because some people just starting the career may not know what it is.
Yeah.
What's it all about? How does it help you progress?
Yeah. So it's a framework, in terms of different modules, and you learning about your practice. You're working with other individuals who've been referred onto the programme in their settings, understanding their settings as well. So it's that peer-to-peer stuff, but also it's driven by, the latest pedagogy, isn't it? And all the different key people come in and talk to you. And it was absolutely fantastic, really. Going into different settings, sharing practice, that's the thing that you need. because in teaching, it sometimes can be very siloed working, even though you could be in a big school, but it's just what's going on in your school. It's good to see what's going on elsewhere. But it was different modules. I mean, I've got a terrible memory, but they're definitely focusing on, leadership strategies, focusing on, different developments within the curriculum, different things about, environment and things like that, really. But it was very, very good. So for me, the bit that I took from it was the leadership, but the networking, which is something I like.